Hi, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to speak to you all today. Just a heads up, this is going to be a very practical focused discussion. I'm going to talk to you about some things that everybody can do when they are teaching online. It's from our lived experience here at BPP School of Technology. We're a completely online school and we have been and remain to be so even post-COVID. So we are sharing some of the things that we've learned over the years to really improve how our learners feel seen, feel part of a community, and the successes that we've had and the challenges that we've had. So we also think about our faculty in this. So please do ask lots and lots of questions. And like I said, this is from our lived experience. So I'm going to talk a little bit first about the importance of feeling seen. It's not something that I'm going to preach to you all about. You're all here because you want to learn more about including more learners, especially in a digital environment. So, I will get off my soapbox and get on with the talk. But I'm going to present to you our inclusive session plan. This is something that myself and my colleague Jen Maynard designed together, and I'm going to share it with you all. And it's something that's designed to fit all online sessions. It's a great wraparound that anybody can use when they're teaching online. So we'll talk about things that your lecturers, your tutors can do when opening a session, during the session, and closing a session, and I'll pull it all together for you. So it is essentially an all-purpose lesson plan that anyone can hopefully take away with and think, right, here are some things that I can do to run my online session in a more inclusive way without it having massive overheads. That's the really key thing. Okay, so we know that feeling seen, creating an online community, making learners feel like they matter, improves retention, it's better for inclusion, it's better engagement. But we also know in online classes, I think it was Julianne mentioned hiding behind a screen in that in the second talk, sorry. Yeah, it's very difficult when you cannot see your learners to know whether they are engaged. If they are a name on a screen, I'm looking at lots of initials and just a few cameras right now. And it is very difficult to know whether you are still making your cup of tea with your very old kettle, or if you're back and you're listening and you're enjoying it and you're taking something away. But we have to deal with the realities of the online classroom. Computing power to have everybody, there are over 500 people on this call right now, having everybody here and engage and interacting in that way is exceptionally difficult. So we're talking about the realities of the situation and time. Okay, I know that there's not going to be a single teacher in this room who's never felt I don't have time. So it's about doing things that are actionable, sustainable, and impactful. And that is what I'm hoping to share with you today. So all of these things that I'm going to share with you today are not things that require huge amounts of setup. So everything that I'm going to present to you today will take less than 5 minutes to wrap around your sessions. Okay. So here is my online classroom. This is me. Okay, I haven't put my hat on today, but I have a spoon, which is my paintbrush. Okay, but that's me up in the corner, so I'm on my camera. Okay, I may have a chat box, all right, and a screen share. So I use Adobe Connect. That's what we use here at BPP. There's Zoom, there's Teams, WebCT. There's all sorts of different things that people will use. But these are the main components of what you'll see. Okay, you may have your list of learners down the outside. All right, so we have the chat box and you can see the learners are speaking to each other or to me in the chat box. We've already got microphone issues going on. All right, so this is the reality of what we're dealing with. We have some way of sharing our screen. We have some way of people interacting. We may or may not be able to have people on camera or on microphones, and it's really going to depend on the situation that we have and what we're aiming to do. Maybe we're doing a demo. So I teach a lot of data, so I might demo Python programming or Excel. I might be delivering a lecture, much like I am today. Okay, but it all boils down to these similar components. I can see who's in my classroom because I can see their names, and I can see some kind of interaction. So this inclusive session plan that we're going to present to you is based on those abilities. So you've got your screen share, you've got your chat, you've got your list of learners. Okay, but we've reviewed 3 years worth of learning support agreements. So these are agreements between learners and our learning support team for what they require to be supportive in that online environment. So this covers everything from learners with physical challenges who may need to take medication at certain times, learners with diabetes, learners with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, a huge range of challenges that our learners face. Okay. We have what are called daily pulse scores. So these are our daily feedback scores for our faculty. So we review the content in that. And we also have student staff liaison committee meetings, so student rep meetings, or they've got lots of different names, but essentially it's when you have your student community come and feedback to the university. And we also have direct conversations with learners. Our learners are apprentices, so they have apprenticeship coaches who take the role of a personal tutor. And we also have line managers. Because we have apprentices, we also have that direct line out into the workplace. So this is information that's coming from a lot of places. So we also get that extra information about what kind of support our learners are getting in the workplace. Because we hear something a lot in academia, don't we? We can't spoon feed them. We can't send them out into a job and have them spoon fed with everything. So it's really useful to know for us what support they're getting out in the workplace already. So it's a balance of all of these things. So opening session. Couple of things on the screen. I'm going to walk you through what each of these components do, but I want to draw your attention here. One of the most useful things you can do when you're teaching online is to have yourself open a blank document. Okay, have open a blank document that you can add to as you go through the session. Don't have it in a screen share necessarily, no harm if you do, but it will save a huge amount of time after the session. So walking through this online environment, this is opening the scene. So this is how you are waiting for your class to join. Okay, so you have your camera on. Visual cues are incredibly important. In fact, actually, Matthew opened our talks today by describing himself. Okay, and that is something I should have done myself when I started, but I was too excited to get started and I just cracked on. But visual cues are incredibly important. They are showing how you are engaging and doing active listening and adding extra gestures, whether it's showing enthusiasm with my hands. I talk with my hands an awful lot, or if you are nodding as learners are typing in the chat, showing that encouragement, that is adding a level of engagement. Okay, and that additional cue helps people who process in lots of different ways. So it's not necessarily, oh, this is great for X learning difference. It's a combination of things. So having your camera on is incredibly important. Okay. So showing learning outcomes, that helps people visualize what is expected of them. It means right from the get-go, people know what is the point of today? How do I focus my efforts? How do I know if I've succeeded? This is incredibly important for people who may fixate, who may be anxious, or who may just otherwise struggle to process information in a variety of different ways. It may help people who have physical challenges and need to partition their energy. So not everybody can go into every session ready to hit everything full pelt. Okay, people need to manage their own energy and efforts, and letting them know what it is they need to achieve gives them the agency to do that. Timings. So showing the timings at the beginning of your session, even if it's just a very, very brief outline. I'm going to talk for half an hour, you're going to do a task for half an hour, then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to repeat. That allows people to manage their anxiety, but also allow people who require medication or breaks to time those medications and breaks. And again, this is all very basic information to have on a screen as people are joining. Okay. Sequencing information. So where in the term are you? Where in the talk content are you? That allows people to form those concepts and relationships and contextualize what they're learning, why they're learning that. And that helps them form that relationship within the course more easily. And wherever possible, use learners' names when they are joining the classroom. Even if you are not 100% confident on a pronunciation, it's so incredibly important to at least try and say everybody's names. What we do is in our induction is we have everybody introduce themselves in the induction, and then we make a note of preferred names and pronunciations in our class registers so that our faculty can see what they say. So during a session, all right, so we're into the meat of it. It doesn't matter what it is that you're teaching or how you're teaching it, But closed captions are incredibly beneficial, not just for those who may have hearing difficulties, but also for those who have things like ADHD or poor computer speeds. Okay, so these are incredibly important. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have them on your own machine, but telling people how to facilitate the closed captions is really important. Okay, so writing clear instructions in writing, not just verbally, but also written down, is very key. Ambiguity can be very difficult for learners to manage, even if it's just knowing how long that you have to complete a task or do a poll. Okay, and anywhere where you have new terminology or new information, doubling that up in the chat means that if people who perhaps process written information more easily than auditory information, very common with things like dyslexia or dyspraxia, to have different relationships with different forms of information, having that information available in more than one place is really important. So I could, for instance, type out a new term here just while I'm talking. Okay, now I'm not great at typing and talking at the same time, but add to your chat what that new term is. Not only are you modeling that new language, but it's providing that information to people in different ways. And what I must stress, repeat yourself. So something that we've noticed in teaching observations, a common drawback in online teaching is people going too fast. They're not stopping to check, but repeating yourself, bringing those key concepts in more than once is really important. Imagine the number of times you've been watching a recording and you blink and you missed it. That key piece of information your assignment's due in on the 8th of January and they've missed that key information. And that really will help support learners who might struggle with verbal memory or auditory processing. Okay, so during a session, give due consideration. So this is something that you as an individual practitioner can reflect on. So that's where you think that a learner is not engaging, don't ascribe motivations to that. It may be because they are struggling rather than they have left the room. Now, I'm not saying no learner will never log in and walk off. It does happen, but try and just give them the benefit of the doubt of thinking maybe they're struggling. Okay? So empathy and patience. Try and give learners the space to ask questions and seek clarification. So whether that's saving 10 minutes at the end of the session or saying, do you want to use your microphone? Do you want to use the chat? You can send a direct message. You can send a group message. So giving options for ways that they can engage with you. Again, none of this is adding to your time workload. This is all things that you're allowing them to do inside of those sessions. Okay, and similarly, it's beneficial to give them ways to check their own understanding, whether that's MCQs or even, in Teams, just a quick thumbs up, okay, rather than having them actually type out answers. Choice and agency are incredibly important in allowing people to feel seen. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So speaking of time, it can take people longer than others, and having clear timings visible, but also giving people time to respond to a question. Don't take that first answer, but also be quiet. Don't be afraid of that silence. Be quiet, because it's incredibly difficult for a lot of people, myself included, to concentrate and write while somebody else is still talking, because they don't know if it's new information that you're sharing or not. So finally then, in closing a session, if you can allow 5 minutes for a Q&A, right, that allows people to digest the information verbally, solicit feedback from learners, so whether you have these end of module surveys or daily surveys. And I mentioned earlier, opening a document. In that document, type that new terminology. You're going to put it in the chat, put it in the document as well. Whatever it is that you've got for a VLE at the end of your session, just take those notes, post them in there, and that will be an incredibly valuable resource. So I will leave it on that slide there because I'm just seeing the time, okay? And I don't want to run over, but if anybody would love to talk, please do search for me on LinkedIn, or my email is sampenrice@bpp.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. I didn't want to stop you there. We've run into the question time, but you were giving so many tips. I just didn't want to interrupt you. They were really fantastic. They really were. I particularly like the one about kind of not rushing the students. And I think one example that I can think of straight away is when we use polling tools. I think it can be really tempting just to stick up a poll and then just quickly go to the next one. And whilst that can be fun for some students, it can really pile on the pressure for other students. I
Yeah.
myself am quite a slow reader on screen, so I'd find that quite stressful. But when you allow that little bit extra, it doesn't have to be long, but it makes
Mhm.
such a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and something that you can do that as well is have all of your polls available at the same time and tell them you must do these first two, but if you finish those, do these next two. And the next two can always be the more complex ones as well.
Yeah, really great. Thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have time to ask any questions now, but if you do have any questions for Sam, please put them in the Q&A. And don't forget, everyone, we have recorded the session and we'll make it available via our YouTube channel as soon as we possibly can. So thank you, Sam. Another great start to the second half of the webinar. So thank you.